Welcome to our Athletes for Arizona series of athlete to athlete conversations. Today we have a guest for our Women's History Month series where we are highlighting female athletes in Arizona. Today we are speaking with Olympian Sachs. Alex, would you share a little bit about yourself and your sports experience?
Of course. So I played for the Brazilian national team for about 11 years. I got into soccer late in life. It was just happened to fall in my lap. I had returned to Brazil after graduating high school in Paris, France. I went to the American School of Paris and went to college in Brazil. While I was in college, a friend of mine said, "Hey, they're having tryouts for women's soccer in Brazil." And I said, "Well, what does that entail?" And she goes, "Well, they just want women to go because they want to try and create women's soccer opportunities in Sao Paulo, which is the city I'm from." So I said, "I'll go with you." I said to her, "I'm not that great of a soccer player." But lucky for me, they got everybody was there, got to be put into a soccer club. I actually got put into Corinthians, which is actually my favorite soccer club growing up. So I worked really hard throughout, I would say 8 or 9 years to try and make it to the Olympic team. It took me 3 tries. So basically soccer became a passion after that. I put a goal that I wanted to excel in it, worked really hard throughout the years, had some up and downs, some moments of, "Oh, I'm going to make it to the Olympics." No, you're not going to make it to the Olympics until 2004 when I was invited. So my experience with soccer was just falling in my lap. I loved tennis growing up, but never became a tennis player. So I love what I do. I love what soccer gave to me. And I love sharing that story with people.
It's an amazing story. And just to think your background just in South America and even France, and now you're in Arizona, it's quite amazing. You've got to experience several different cultures. And I'm curious, would you be able to speak a little bit about now being in Arizona, what you're doing, and maybe even touch on kind of your view in the landscape of women's sports in Arizona and how that compares to your experience internationally?
So coming to Arizona, I came to Arizona to do my doctorate in sports psychology at Arizona State University. I was really excited to come to Arizona, not only to be reunited with my family because they had just moved here a few years prior, but also because the WNBA started. And I used to watch on TV in Brazil, the Phoenix Mercury, because my parents lived in Arizona. So I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to watch Phoenix Mercury." And also because Phoenix Mercury had some players that I really liked, like Michelle Timms, that I've seen in the Olympic aspect of the sport and the World Cup in basketball. So I was really excited because I felt Arizona at the time, even though I didn't know a lot about it, it was a hub for women's sports, especially having a franchise here for basketball. So really exciting. I got to Arizona and I was amazed how women's sport compared to Brazil was much more elevated. It was a culture shock when I moved to Brazil. Living in Europe, I grew up in the United States, and realizing that the things I took for granted of women playing sports, girls having opportunities to play sports, was not 100% in Brazil. Sports was still seen as very much of a machismo, a very man sport. You had basketball, volleyball. So when I got to soccer, I realized, oh, geez, this is completely different from how I grew up. So when I went to Arizona and saw these soccer clubs with these girls, I'm like, you guys are so lucky that you're starting here, and it's, people are so positive. And even though soccer in the US, it's a women's sport. And I tell people that it's very much geared to girls. I said, you're so lucky because not everyone had that opportunity. So for me, I was so excited. I wanted to give as much as I could of sports because I knew how important sports were for me growing up. And then going to Brazil and seeing that sports had a different connotation. You know, I remember people telling me like, oh, women can't play soccer. Soccer's a man's sport. And coming to Arizona and telling girls, do you really think it's a man's sport? Like, it's not, right? Because you guys can play it and you play really well. So I was really excited, still am, love living in Arizona for all the opportunities. I think we have, you know, great professional athletes that live here, great Olympians that live here that really give Arizona a great name around the world, great facilities, great universities. So I was, like I said, I was super excited, especially coming from Brazil and that culture shock that I had the first couple of years in Brazil.
Wow. Yeah. I think when we, look at it from an international perspective, we really do have so much to be thankful for. I mean, the resources, the opportunities, there's a lot available to us here, isn't it?
Mm.
So, speaking on Women's History Month and some big themes around empowering women, I would like to know what are some of the ways that you empower women around you?
You know, well, girls, I always make it a point. A lot of people, once they find out I played soccer, ask me, "Oh, can you go and talk to my daughter's soccer team?" I love doing that. I love just presenting, talking, telling them my experience, giving them the tools, letting them know that this is a stepping stone for so much more. You know, a lot of people think, and that's what is different from men's sport to women's sports, is that, you know, when a boy plays sports, they're like, okay, he's going to become professional and it goes through that route. I think for women, sports gives tools that we wouldn't normally get, right? It gives us leadership skills, conflict resolution skills. It really builds for us to be whoever we want to be it a professional athlete, be a CEO of a company. It gives us the ideas of what teamwork is, how to work with other people, how to deal with, because you played, a team has so many different personalities. And it gives you that opportunity to learn how to deal with so many different personalities. So I love going and talking about what sports did to me, what sports can do to them. I love the sports psychology side of sports. So I talk a lot about that, the mental health part of it. Like, sports gives you a way to burn that energy. If you're anxious, the sport's going to help you with your anxiety. Those are tools that girls that might not play sports don't see. So one of the things I did with United Healthcare when I worked at Playworks Arizona was I was wondering, how can we get girls that are Latin, where parents see sport as not a weight out of where they are, the poverty or wherever. So we partnered with Phoenix College, and for three or four sessions each year, so for 4 years, we used to have an all-girls soccer camp. We did it with Title I schools. Phoenix College soccer team would actually do the drills with the kids. United Healthcare would give them backpack. They got a free backpack, ball, socks, all of these tools. We invited the parents because then we had little vendors and schools talking to parents, healthcare. And I wanted the girls to see, because most of the girls were Hispanic, see that Phoenix College had soccer for girls, and they were also the majority Hispanic. This is an opportunity for you to go to college. This is an opportunity for you to make friends, get an education, and also let the parents see that this was an opportunity for them. So it was, for me, that was the best. Every time United Healthcare asked me, hey, Alex, we're setting this up, are you in? I was in. And I talked to the girls about what I went through, even with my own father. I remember when I told my dad, hey, I'm thinking of, in Brazil, you can lock your 1 year after you make the entrance exam in college. So I remember telling my dad, hey, I'm going to lock it for 1 year because I want to pursue the soccer thing. And my dad saying to me, oh my God, what are my friends going to think you playing soccer? Because it is a machismo attitude. Not that my dad was a bad dad, but it was what he thought. Soccer was a man's sport. So now people are going to see you in a different light. So I tell that story, and I would tell that story at Phoenix College, and I would have dads coming going, I would like if my daughter would like soccer, take that culture out of their ideas. So definitely empowering girls around me is very important. And you have to do it where people can see you, and have great people around me. I can, Phoenix College, and those girls were amazing. Their coach, Chris, was amazing to do that day, and seeing those girls just feel like I can do this. It's not a bad thing. Really means a lot.
Wow, yeah, you sure have empowered a lot of women in sports, and I think even changing the cultural mindset around it is such a big part, and that's amazing. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but what does gender equity in sports mean to you?
For me, it means I want, people talk about, it's such a topic now, but for me, it's the opportunity. And whenever people ask me that, I say, I want girls to look at their dads and say, hey, I want to go to a Phoenix Mercury game. I remember I was a season ticket holder. It was packed of people watching the game. I want girls to tell their dads, you're coming with me to a game, and a dad saying, I'm going to take you to this game. Gender equality is equal time to see someone play. So not only watching NBA, but I think parents need to take their kids to watch WNBA. Not only MLS, but let's go see the women's play also. And here we talk a lot about salaries, and I get it. But for me, is that I want more people in the stands. I love going to watch a tennis game, because no matter who's playing, man or woman, that stadium is packed at the US Open, the French Open, Wimbledon. So I want to see that in every sport. And to do that, we have to tell parents, hey, give your kids opportunity, be it a boy or a girl, to come watch this game. They're going to learn. They're going to learn to respect the game. They're going to learn to have idols. Girls have a lot of men idols, like, oh, I love Messi. Oh, Pele. But I want boys to say, you know what? I really like Mia Hamm, or I really like, Judy Fowley. Like having them pick and idolize women also for me is really important. And I think that's where I see the most important part is actually taking your kids to the games, being enthusiastic about it. Don't tell me, women's soccer or women basketball is inferior. It's two different. You can't compare men's soccer to women's soccer. Okay, they're two complete different games. Same thing with women's basketball, men's basketball. Two completely different games. So I want to change that mindset. That don't look at it as, oh, it's women, it's just women playing. It's what is my kid learning from this? So for me, that's where I came from. In Brazil, that's what I created was respect, because we didn't have any. We were always laughed at, or people would say derogatory things about us, and I would, sit down and say, "Hey, no, this is what you're seeing. You're watching a team who had nothing start developing in 5, 6, 7, 8 years to becoming a two-time silver medalist." I played for Athens, but they won the silver in Beijing also. Marta is probably one of the most sought out soccer players of all time, men or women. Pele has said that she is an equal to him. So that's what I want. That's where I see it happening. Equality in sports is when people see that it's two different sports, two different ways of playing, but everyone's a great teacher, mentor, leader.
That is probably the best definition I've heard of equality in sports. Thank you, Alex. Who are the women in your life who inspire you?
Believe it or not, my great grandmothers, both of them on both sides, lost their husbands very young. So we're talking about the turn of the century. One was from Brazil, lost her husband, had to run a ranch.
Wow.
The other was from Egypt and had to raise 8 kids on her own. Neither had not even probably primary education, because back in those days, those two countries, women weren't seen too much education-wise. So I would say, even though I never met my great-grandmothers, that amazes me. That inspires me to think that these women took a lead role in their families. My great aunt was one of the first engineers in Brazil. And I remember her telling me how men used to just look at her because she was wearing pants. And this is like 1930s and 40s. And, having all men crew. And she used to be an engineer for tracks, the train tracks. And she would, have to tell these guys how to build it. And her stories of how she had to earn her respect, because a lot of men were like, "You're a woman, what are you doing here?" Right? So definitely, I always looked at my great aunt in amazement. And now, like my wife, she's my biggest cheerleader, so she inspires me. My daughters, I hope I give them passion. They're not athletic at all. I tried. And I want to give them the passion and the understanding of what being a woman athlete, a woman artist, whatever they choose, I want them to realize they need to be the best. And sometimes life isn't fair. But you can't put that and say, "I'm not going to do that because life isn't fair." You can't be angry. You have to change it, in subtle ways. Don't be argumentative, I tell them. Just change. See what you want and change it. So those are the people I look for, up to, or people that I wish I knew. Growing up, I idolized Martina Navratilova because she was so different from any other athlete I had ever seen in my life. And I remember all the adversity she went through, being a foreigner, coming to the United States, defected from Czechoslovakia, being a little bit more muscular than a Chris Evert, making tennis an amazing sport, because of her, we had Steffi Graf and we have Serena Williams and Venus Williams because of her. And of course, for me, very important, I always wanted to know, because I lived in the United States, but I was so connected to Brazil because I was born in Brazil. My mom was Brazilian. I always looked to find Brazilian athletes to learn. And I learned about Maria Esther Bueno, who was a Brazilian tennis player who won Grand Slams. And I remember when I first met her, when I moved back to Brazil, and I told her, I'm like, this is greatest honor is to meet you, because how did you do it in the 1950s and 60s in Brazil as a woman playing tennis? And her stories are amazing because she never had anger. She said, we have to do what we need to do. And we need to fight hard, but we can't complain, because if we complain, that male side will say, well, women only complain. You just have to and fight. And she was an amazing, amazing tennis player. So those are the people that inspire me. Like I said, my wife inspires me every day because she's my biggest cheerleader. And she's always there telling me, you have to do this. Whenever I'm tired and like, I don't want to really go and talk to, a bunch of people. No, you have to do it. You have to sit and talk and tell them what you believe in. So that's basically the people that inspire me.
That's incredible. I mean, just the legacy of your great grandmothers and where you come from. I mean, it's so powerful to see all these pioneers that you've listed who have done amazing things above and beyond in their time as well. So I think that's incredible. What advice would you give to other female athletes in Arizona?
I always tell people, and whenever I meet other athletes, is we need to have a united front. We need to really work on helping others. We have it great here in the U.S. I tell people, and I get it. People want, there's a salary gap as a professional athlete, especially in certain sports. But we have it made in the U.S. So I always tell people in Arizona, think of the states that might not, our poorer states that might not have those opportunities for girls. Think of countries where girls can't even go watch a soccer game. How can we bring that knowledge to people? How can we help impart this inequity that exists in other parts of the U.S. and the world? Because we think, Arizona's blessed. We have a women's WNBA. We have great running clubs with great runners in Arizona. We have Olympians that retired here. Gold medalists and, people that actually, made money and fame that can be advocates for a movement. Because it's not about my sport, I make X amount, in this sport you make X amount. It's about how can we unify for everyone to feel like they are being paid fairly, that they're being treated with respect. And that's the most important, because I wasn't treated with respect when I lived in Brazil. And day in, day out, you had to talk to people and have to listen to people's excuses of why they felt that women shouldn't be playing certain sports. So I would say just let's see what's out there and go for it,
That's a great answer. And like you said, the unifying approach of coming together across all sports and across all different countries and helping increase equality in sports. Sorry, we're gonna probably cut that part out. um, as we close, what organizations or resources, maybe even books, do you recommend for empowering women?
So I'm all for Women's Sports Foundation. I think that's probably one of the coolest places to find articles and get to know other athletes, what's happening in women's sports, pay gap, with all the fights that mental health, they have a whole series. The importance of girls playing sports. They hit puberty, a lot of these girls, and they just leave sports. What are we doing that can stop that? Because sports for life, even if they don't become professional athletes, which majority of people don't, we want them to continue that health, especially for mental health purposes nowadays. Sports so important. I run. I don't play soccer anymore. I'm too old, don't want to get hurt. So I run, I play pickleball. But those all come from always loving the sport, any kind of sport. So that's Women's Sports Foundation. Also, I was looking because I saw that. So I kind of was looking at stuff, and I saw Play It Forward Sport, which is also talking about how women can empower themselves in sports and be advocates in sports. Kind of like Athletes for Hope helps you be part of the community and donate your time. This is also advocating women athletes to go out and really empower girls. One of my favorite books, it's in Portuguese, it's not translated in English, is called Toque de Gênio, which is Touch of a Genius, which is Fofão, who's a volleyball player for Brazil. She played for the Brazilian national team. And I love her story because she's a black female athlete in Brazil. That's I can't even imagine what that was like in the 80s and 90s and growing up trying to become, she was a renowned volleyball player. So she talks about her start to her retirement and all the stuff she went through mentally, physically, mental health. So if you speak Portuguese or want to learn Portuguese, great book. Another one that I really like, I have it here, is Fast Girls, which I love history and I love sports history. So Fast Girls is the 1936 women's Olympic team, which are the 3 track stars. And they talk about perseverance. They talk about how these women became who they are through trials and tribulations. So that's a really good book because it shows that anything's possible and don't be a victim. I think in society today, we put ourselves as victims and we victimize ourselves by going, well, because society told me I can't make enough money or I won't play soccer. Well, no, don't be the victim. Prove them wrong. I've always been like that. You've met me, Joy. I'm 4'11", okay? And I was a goalie. Wow. I didn't let anyone say, hey, we're not, you can't play that sport. So we just have to really, really understand that we can't be victims. We have to go out there and face the world. And yeah, sometimes we'll fall flat on our face. But we have to get up, not be angry. I hate anger. I hate when people go on TV and are angry. One of the things I loved about Marta in the last World Cup was her crying and thanking people for everything that they've done for the Brazilian soccer world, the female Brazilian soccer world. She wasn't angry when she was crying. She was overjoyed with such emotion that, we took nowadays we have equity in pay. But all the other stuff that she said, that it's every day we're battling, but we have to come back and be stronger. And that's what I want people. It's not anger, not victim mentality. It's, hey, look, guess what I'm going to do. So I like that. That book is really cool because it does talk about, I think, the most important thing as a female athlete, and which is perseverance. It's going to be hard. It's not an easy road. Lucky are, people say, oh, tennis players are so lucky, golfers are so lucky because they, make so much money. But how long did it take Billie Jean King to do that? And a whole movement that she created to do that. We just stopped. Once we got to a certain part, I feel like we just stopped as a society. We're like, oh, we don't want to fight this fight, or I don't know what happened to us, but I want to see that energy again. I want to see little Billie Jean Kings, just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. I want to see more women coaches. I love coaching, and I tell girls, hey, if you can't be a soccer, professional soccer player, become a coach. I want to see more sports psychologists, women sports psychologists that will understand women's mindset. Every chance I have, when they say, hey, do you want to coach a girls team? I say yes. I want girls to see that they have all these opportunities. I love watching March Madness, women's basketball, college basketball, and seeing women coaches. Those are the best. They understand you. Yes, some of them are really tough because they had to be tough, and they're going to make you tough. So I think, just like I said before, just go watch a game. You'll learn so much from those games. I'm rambling. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. I can just sense your passion throughout the entire conversation. I feel so inspired, and I'm so thankful that you shared your story and just this powerful message today. And also wanted to just thank you for being such a dedicated member of Athletes for Hope, and even a board member for Athletes for Arizona. So I'm looking forward to having you continuing in some of these conversations and sharing your story again. So thank you again, Alex.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.